unpacking today's headlines. This is Souls and Liberty in Depth.
Hello everyone and welcome to In Depth, a production of Souls and Liberty. With just 96 days remaining until the election, it's time to pull the fire alarm. Today we're going to talk about what life would look like under a Harris administration. And joining me for that discussion is, first of all, fellow Souls and Liberty contributor, Stephen Wynn from Kansas City. Hey Stephen, how you doing?
Doing all right, thank you.
And Souls and Liberty contributor Arthur Clareau coming to us from Toronto. Hey Arthur.
Hey there, how you doing?
Good, good. All right, guys, let's open this up. Life under President Harris. What do you think that would look like in your opinion? Stephen, you won the coin toss we did before the show, so let's throw it to you. What do you think?
I think if Kamala Harris takes the White House, I really believe we're looking at the end of America as we know it. And I mean that quite literally. I think in many ways, a Harris administration would basically be Biden on steroids. We'll have permanent open borders, sanctuary cities, more defund the police madness. Economically, it's going to be rough. We're looking at probably the end of fracking, no new pipelines being drilled, and as a result, soaring energy costs. And what happens when energy costs soar? Well, you get skyrocketing inflation. And we can expect that to happen. So, any hope of for millennials, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, of ever buying a home, I think they can kiss that goodbye, probably permanently. I think we will see probably the codification of abortion nationwide. We've made some progress, halting progress. Victories here and there at the state level since Roe v. Wade was overturned 2 years ago. But you better believe that if Harris gets in, she's going to do everything she can to reverse that. I think we'll also see the ultimate triumph, basically, of all things LGBT. Those are all enormous concerns that I have. Beyond that, I would say an even bigger concern, and this fills me with a sense of dread, is the threat that a Harris administration poses to civil liberties. I think that we're going to see continued weaponization of the courts, of law enforcement against conservatives. Think about what happened with Trump back in late May. That can be happening to individual conservative Americans across the country. And they won't have the benefit of, the nation's media, all cameras being trained on them. I think that, God help us if we have another outbreak of some contagion like COVID. I think we could anticipate massively draconian measures to be implemented against the people of the United States. I also think that we're going to see further degradation of our military capabilities. And this, at a time when Russia, the threats posed by Russia, China, Iran, other enemies, is dramatically escalating. American voters, half of them, it appears at least, may be fooled by Kamala and her message, but our enemies are not. And they know her weakness, and they know that they can capitalize upon it. And so, in the midst of all of that, you throw in the bumbling, feckless foreign policy that we can expect under her reign. I could easily see America stumbling into a war. Perhaps a global conflict. I don't know, but it's just the prospect of a Harris victory fills me with dread. It really does, because as I said, it will be the end of America as we know it.
Yeah, I think some people would make the point, probably pretty arguably, that we're already on that road right now. Let's switch over to you, Arthur, up there in Toronto. I mean, you're looking at America from the outside, certainly one in spirit with all the patriots here. What are your, look into your crystal ball. Let's assume Harris, I don't want to say win, because I want to make a point right here before we turn to you. The communist Democrats control the internet, the search engines, all the social media, with the exception of Elon and X. They control the voting machines. They print the ballots. They control who counts them in the key areas they need to be counted. There is not one single area of control that they don't have almost complete and total control over. Every single sphere is there. So even if she doesn't win, many people are concerned about a win, put that in air quotes, a win by her anyway. So if she gets in, legitimately or illegitimately, she still takes the White House, and then all the powers of government that accrue to that. What happens to regular Americans, in your view, Arthur?
Something to keep in mind, building on what
Stephen said, is that there's a reason they're focusing her campaign on her personality or her trying to make her personable as opposed to her policies. Because you only have to look back at what she's done to have an idea of what she will do. So, to your point as well, Gary, the trend we're on started long ago. This is not going to be new. She will continue it. She will amplify it. She'll make it worse. But it's going to be a continuation of what we had under Obama, what we had under Biden, and then we'll have under Harris, God forbid. But going back to her record in California as the DA and as the AG, and then her record in the Senate, you can see exactly what that's going to look like. Prosecuting minor criminality like trespassing on January 6th, trespassing at the Capitol, going after them with every possible, the fullest extent of the law, while also simultaneously releasing violent criminals who have committed violent crimes back on the street 24 hours later to commit more violent crimes to be back on the street 24 hours later. Yeah. Just that alone should be a disqualifier. But then you also have the border problems. She was, along with then Mayor Gavin Newsom, a huge proponent of sanctuary cities. She was crucial, according to many in California, in passing of Prop 47, which then allowed rampant theft and shoplifting and petty crime to just skyrocket. And some of the other consequences of that had violent crime in California up 30% during that time. So this is not someone who has presided over a healthy state that she's made better and has any potential of making the country a better place. If her record is any indication, she's going to make it even worse than it is now.
Yeah, and of course, I mean, her record is an indication of it. Politicians don't generally, turn over a new leaf, particularly when they take control of the Oval Office. They are married to a worldview, and that's exactly what it is. I want to talk sort of a little bit about the response of patriots, not necessarily just MAGA people, but people in general who are kind of concerned about this. And maybe they don't like Donald Trump. Maybe they're not even particularly fans of the MAGA thing. They're maybe neutral towards it. But the response from, let's just label all of those people as the conservatives, and we'll put them in quotes, there isn't really an organized response to this precisely because they have virtually all of the power. So how would this play out on a day-to-day? Do you have to worry, like I said earlier, about tanks rolling down your street? Well, no, because some of the people that live on that street support the tanks. So people need to be, by them, their strategy, a Harris administration, all the 10,000 bureaucrats that go along with it and everything else, they have to sit there and pinpoint various targets that they want to get. A good example, again, is the fellow who, got thrown in prison, charged, with a federal felony and thrown in prison for posting a meme about Hillary Clinton. It was a satire meme in the election in 2016. So can they shut off your power? Sure. Can they, but even to solidify their power even more, what are some of the things they could do politically which sort of clears the path for them to do things socially? Well, you get enough people, you have, DC declared a state. And, with it gets a representative in Congress and 2 more senators. That would be absolutely lights out. You would never overcome that. While you're at it, throw in Puerto Rico. We heard all the talk in the last election about packing the Supreme Court. The Biden's announcement earlier this week about term limits, so that would require a constitutional amendment. You don't need a constitutional amendment to increase the number of justices on the Supreme Court. They know where their weaknesses are that need to be shored up. They're very close to majority everywhere, and to have a significant, dominant plurality, largest minority you can have, it doesn't take very much effort to just push that boulder just that little bit extra way up the hill, and now you've got everything you want. So they can pass a law declaring people with these sorts of views, whatever they are domestic terrorists. Remember, they used to wrestle, back in the early days of Biden. Cops would go in and wrestle parents to the ground in front of school board meetings and arrest them and drag them out. And that was before they had full power. They can shut off your bank accounts. I mean, that's what Trudeau did up in Canada with all of your folks, Arthur. And they have digital control. So this idea that somehow, hey, we've got all these guns and they're never going to be able to overthrow us and stuff and everything. Well, we may have guns, but we don't have tanks. And as Joe Biden himself said when that question was posed to him about a year ago out on the White House lawn, he kind of giggled at them and said, well, you have your guns, but your guns aren't going to bring down an F-18. And yeah, that's true. I mean, they've got drones to fly over. They can monitor every single communication you have. They already are. But they can weaponize all of these things against you and sort of take you out little by little. If they do come to your door to arrest you, and you're a guy, you're probably going to get killed. Because they'll just kick your door in, and if you've got a gun, they'll blow your head off. Unlike what they do when President Trump is talking there, they let the guy run around on the roof, doing a tap dance. But when all of this is going on, you just don't have any of the instruments of control that they have. It's not a fair fight. And that's what I want to talk about in large part here, Stephen, because there has to be some sense of organization, and just posting funny memes and haha videos and saying, oh, they suck, and oh, this is all a fake narrative. We know it's a fake narrative, as Arthur just brought up. We know it's a fake narrative. It's not just, it's personality over policy until they get in, and then the policy, becomes the rule of law. Is there anything in your mind that can be done in preparation for this? And you can't go live in the woods. They've got drones and they'll just strike you in the woods. I mean, what is there to do?
That's a great question. I don't know that I have a solution other than to keep doing what we're doing here at Souls and Liberty and trying to get the message out. I think far, far too few conservatives, even major hosts, on the airwaves, I think the overwhelming majority of them really don't grasp how serious the threat is, how existential it is. Everyone is talking about inflation and the open borders and all those kinds of things, which are terrible. They're awful. They're causing a lot of people in this country massive pain. But things can get so much worse, and they always do under a communist regime. No communist leader ever surrenders power willingly, and so if Harris gets in, we're going to see basically permanent one-party rule, I think. And as you said, on
that point, Stephen, if I can interrupt you,
yeah,
we already have that in a number of states, California, New York. I mean, we have that already. So for people to think this can't happen nationally when it's already happened on a number of state levels is, that's just absurd thinking.
Absolutely. And look what's happening to those states. They're empty. People are fleeing. For the first time in its history, the past few years, California has lost population. I mean, that would have been unheard of, even a decade ago. But things have gotten so bad, even in the Golden State, that people are voting with their feet, basically.
There are signs in stores all over California now, thanks to Gavin Newsom and this whole mindset of these commies and, using everything they can to talk about fairness and equality and all this stuff. There's signs in stores telling shoplifters, don't take more than $950.
Yeah, it's another planet out there, and to your point and to Arthur's, yeah, all you have to do is look at California. Harris, as well as Newsom, they are the authors of the chaos that reigns in that state now. Massive homeless encampments, skyrocketing prices, housing unaffordability, and some of the most draconian lockdown measures in the nation when the pandemic was occurring. And so conservatives will look at California and we'll laugh at the voters there because we just dismiss them as being nuts for continuing to return these same leftists to office, same people who have basically destroyed what was arguably the greatest state in the United States at one point. And yet here we are on the cusp of an election where it's very possible that America as a whole may choose directly to elect those same people into power in the White House. And so,
or enough people will do it so that a steal becomes somewhat plausible, believable.
Yes, exactly. And I remember something that you said in the midst of the 2020 presidential election, the fact that Biden ostensibly, supposedly, got a slight majority of the vote. Even the fact that even if he had gotten just close and lost to Trump, that is astounding to think about. And one of the things you said was, Americans are asleep. They refuse to wake up. Perhaps America has not suffered enough. If Harris gets into power,
we will
suffer.
Absolutely. Arthur, so let's talk about some of the ways they could get to individuals. Government contracts, for example, are extended to, obviously, corporations that build this, that, or the other, whatever it is. They do these services, provide whatever it is, et cetera. It's the largest sector in the economy, as a matter of fact, essentially government corporate handouts. Imagine you're just some regular dude who doesn't believe in any of this stuff, and you just want to raise your family, do your thing, and you're dependent on one of these companies for your living. And then all of a sudden, some rule, not a law, a rule comes down. I don't think enough patriots understand the difference between a law and a rule. A rule is really hard to challenge, even with Chevron being overthrown by the Supreme Court last month. A rule where it says, we've identified, 25 points here, and we require you, if you're going to get our $1 billion handout here from DC Corporation, we require you to go through your personnel files, hand out this questionnaire to every single person who works for you. And if they score more than 4 or 5 or something, you have to fire them or you're not getting our money. Really, there's not a blessed thing in sight that could stop them from doing that.
I think we all experienced
What that was like during the COVID times, right? Where these kind of arbitrary and in many cases bizarre rules were passed down. There was no real elected representatives having a say here. No one was really fighting back, at least not at the beginning. Everyone was kind of just going along, and you could see from top to bottom just exactly how these things were just pushed through. And most people, because in a system, you don't really leave a lot of space for the individual to be a hero. Does that
Correct.
make sense? The system is designed so that individuals just do what they're supposed to do,
Right.
so that it continues to work, and everyone just follows along. So everyone has been trained for their whole lives, really still since grade school, to follow along, follow the rules, do what you're told. Even in the United States, even in a place, even in the land of the free, this is the case. This is the point of a system like that. And
if you have good people, or at least men of goodwill running there, they might make mistakes and things. But if that's who you've vested your personal individual authority and independence with, and you can probably trust them, and it's not a bad thing to go along. But when those people become evil, and now they want to kill you, now you got a different story.
Well, exactly. So the system itself is a necessary thing for any sort of advanced civilization or complex civilization. You can't have a proper civilization without it. But as we saw again with COVID, like look at the military, right? You have these requirements and you have great people who heroically decide not to go along, but they're punished for it.
Yeah,
right?
they get
The
kicked
heroes
out.
are punished, the heroes are slapped. Exactly. So this is the kind of thing, like you can still be a hero, but if the system is turned against you, good luck. And to those who will point at like, well, you can fight an army. Look at Afghanistan, look at Vietnam, look at all these sorts of things. Well, those aren't quite the same thing.
No, they're not.
And we can get into that another time. But it's like at the very least they had major nations, China, supporting them, or that sort of thing. Or in the case of Afghanistan, the point wasn't to actually fully defeat them. The point was just different. But here, against this system, your hope and prayer right now has to be organization. If it gets to the point where you're alone, standing alone, trying to be a hero, it's too late.
Yeah.
The entire effort right now, as much as Trump is a wonderful thing, and let's pray every day that happens, that he wins, and we don't end up on this road that we're talking about now. But should that happen, we need to have already set up systems of our own, systems that will defend and protect those who will stand up against it, whether that's at your city level, whether that's at your state level, and the country is designed this way. You can secure those levels of the system to protect conservatives, to protect those who are patriots. So really what everyone should be focused on now, along with helping to push for a Donald Trump victory, it's organizing. Organize your local communities, organize your churches, start taking control of the system yourself. Start using the methods that are available to you, lobbies, NGOs, just get sorted, get organized. That's the only thing I can suggest.
How should we do that, Stephen? How do we... That sounds like an organized retreat, which, look, sometimes that's strategic retreat is a very good thing to do. Do you think there's enough understanding that you need to do more than just post memes and say, put up videos of yourself being a tough guy? Not that the people who put up videos being a tough guy aren't tough, but Arthur's point's well taken there. If you're a tough guy and you're alone, standing there in the field, okay, you'll be a hero, but you'll be a dead hero.
Right. Yeah, there isn't enough understanding right now. The effort that Arthur outlines is 100% correct. My concern is that we do not have enough time to do that for November 5th. And if Harris wins, a massive organizational effort like that will take time. And if she wins, I feel confident that there will be pushback. There will be an effort like that will be made. But that's a big undertaking. And in the meantime, there just isn't the awareness among conservatives, the vast majority of conservatives, of the existential threat that she poses. This is she's not Bill Clinton of the 1990s. She's not just liberal. She's leftist. She's beyond leftist. She's
a communist,
Marxist, full-blown communist, absolutely. And that's a very different breed of quote unquote Democrat than we had 25 years ago. And
it's not your father's Democratic Party, that's for sure.
Right, 100%. Yep. And so it may take a lot of pain to get something like that effectively underway.
When you think about, and I don't think the comparison to the rise of the Nazis in Germany, the political rise, and I don't think that's a far-fetched analogy. I know everybody uses, Nazis, blah, 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 stuff, but look, there are certain lessons to be learned from history. The opposition that did exist to Hitler while the Nazis were still not yet in control. The opposition was very weak, and he was shrewd enough, smart enough, whatever you want to call it, savvy enough to understand that the moment he got sufficient amount of power, he had to get rid of those few pockets here or there, and everybody would fall in line. And they did. And there's a human psychology element here that just never really gets talked about. It just doesn't. There's a human psychology element that, look, most people are sheep. They just go along. I mean, Arthur made the point, I'm just expanding on it, that, people have just sort of been taught to, you just sort of do what you're told. Well, true, but, where's the critical thinking? The communists getting control of education have helped push that out and diminish it even more, but they had something to start with. That most people aren't critical thinkers. They're not. Most people don't invent the plane. Most people don't discover gravity. Most people don't find, cures for polio. That's because there are special individuals in history that come along and have the ability to make a dent in history and sort of change the trajectory a little bit, for good or bad. But the reason they're able to do that is because most people just go, oh, okay, and they go along with it. I don't think there's going to be this, there'll be some big mouth, certainly, opposition, I think we all are. But once folks like us are removed from the scene, some people will cower and go, oh, that's awful, and then they'll just go out and do it. How did they march 6 million Jews, into concentration camps? What about when they were going into their houses, tearing them out? Forget about the gas chambers and the ovens and all that, Holocaust denier stuff. Forget about all that stuff. They passed laws, historical record, they passed laws saying you couldn't do business with the Jews, the Jewish bakery or whatever, right on down to the most basic level there was. You can't deal with them. They have to go. We're going to close up those shops. We're going to pass laws. They can't intermarry with people. On and on and on and on. They expunge long before the gas chambers came onto the scene. 7, 8 years before that, they were passing laws essentially isolating and ending Jews from everyday German life. First Germany, and then of course in the occupied territories. Arthur, I don't. My personal opinion is I don't think that's a far-fetched notion here under a Harris presidency at all. Not that you get jammed into a gas chamber in the first month, but their move is, remember who's behind this? The devil is behind this, and he hates people of faith. He wants them gone. And the fact that within the sort of patriot movement is where you find the people of faith, that's why it's become his target. Your thoughts?
Yeah, well, you can see
A modern version of exactly this, the way that communists do this sort of thing in South Africa as well. In the last 20 years, they've gone so far to the other side that they have massive discriminatory laws against white business owners, white farmers, whatever it is, to the point where many even are being killed and butchered, and there's really no major effort to stop that from the South African government. We saw this in Rhodesia as well, now Zimbabwe. This is the same thing that we saw in Eastern Europe when the communists were taking over there. You have to realize this is how they play their game. They get in peaceably and obtain the kingdom through flattery, and of course they have usually a wing of some sort of army of thugs that comes out to help batter whoever doesn't go along with the nice words. And then what they do is, once in charge, they start to absolutely crush any possibility of anyone who could stand against them. This is also one reason why the left hates billionaires. Take Elon Musk, for example. We talk about him a lot, right? He alone has the potential to turn the game around because he has the ability to do so. And this is why communists hate them, because they are really the ones who are able to rally an army to them. They're kind of like the new feudal lords, let's just say. They can bring an army together of people who would otherwise just kind of put their head down and go along, and they can actually fight back. and they have the means and the resources and the will. Donald Trump's another great example, right? Someone with the means and is able to fund himself and go out there and run for presidency against the donor class. So there's there's precedent for exactly what you said, right? Or at the very least for the destruction of people's lives and livelihoods, the shutting down of businesses. Take the cake baker of the Obama eras, right? Mm-hmm. Like that was just, they just sunk them in lawfare. And that was, what is that now? Almost 20 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe
coming up on it,
there,
yeah.
But
18 years ago, sure. 16
right?
years ago, sorry.
So,
yeah.
So regardless, it's we are so far beyond that point now, and we haven't even gotten to the worst part. So with everything we can, we've got to make sure we don't get there.
Yeah, there was a meme on X that I saw. It was a split screen. One side had the Palestinians burning the American flag that they took down in D.C. and burned it. And another one had, the other side of the screen had the truck doing donuts on a pride flag crosswalk painted on the street. And underneath said this, meaning the truck on the pride sidewalk, this is a felony, this is not. When you have control, that's why they want the power, because they want to use the power. Stephen, we're going to wrap up with you. Final thoughts.
Yeah, it's really kind of it's an unsettling time, and that's putting it very mildly. We could have a very grim future in this country if things do not go Trump's way in November. American Christians need to do a lot of praying, a lot of working, and a lot of talking, a lot of speaking to others to try to get the word out about the threat that a Harris administration poses to the life of the country. We've got to wake conservatives up to this fact. It's not just about inflation and open borders. It's about much more than that. And it's about the very future and life of the United States. Yeah,
that's well put. Thank you for that. All right, guys, we're going to leave it there for right now. Thank you for being on. Before we leave you, just a final thought today. The crisis facing America, and very visible in politics, is one of toxic femininity. J.D. Vance isn't weird. He's actually spot on in his assessment of cat ladies. The communist subculture, which is now almost mainstream and dominant, has psyched up sufficient numbers of women to believe that men are evil and they're not equal but actually superior to men. Better. Men are essentially disposable. By and large, as a rule, women run on emotions and men run on logic. But as toxic femininity has seized hold, men and logic have been supplanted by emotional, screaming women hell-bent on bringing about a more just society, starting with killing their children. Everything is a right based on nothing other than their emotions. These kinds of women, as well as the men who support them, should never be anywhere near the centers of power in a culture. Not because they are women, but because they are ruled by their emotions and insist on a society being ruled by them as well. And again, we're talking about men who go along with this also. And there's no shortage of these sissified men who go along with it all because they're emotionally ill. Posing as strong women, nothing could be further from the truth. Strong women are those who lay aside their own concerns for the good of others, especially their family. Strong women love their children. They don't kill them. Strong women follow God, not their emotions. Strong women know there are two sexes, not 7,000. Strong women understand what's operating behind the scenes in the destruction of America is Satan, who has gone after women to bring down men, just like he did all those millennia ago in the Garden of Eden. It is the machine of the demonic operating in overdrive that is taking us over the cliff, and that machine is being driven by toxic women. Until tomorrow then, God love you. I'm Gary Michael Voris.